I'm Emily.
Hello, I'm Renee.
And we are the Glimmer Hunters. You're listening to a podcast that celebrates the tiny moments in life that fill our cups. And now we are back with part 2 of our very interesting chat with Deb Dana.
We are. And in this part, we are lucky enough to speak to Deb Dana, who is a clinician, consultant and international speaker who specialises in complex trauma, who Emily also fondly refers to as the godmother of Glimmers, about her soon-to-be-published Glimmers Journal, which is coming out in early 2025. Of course, we'll post a link as soon as it's available.
Okay, so your new book, The Glimmers Journal, provides readers with a gorgeous framework to name and savour their glimmers. Can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of, going out and intentionally seeking out glimmers in everyday life?
Yeah, it's interesting. The Glimmers Journal is my first foray into this kind of thing, this kind of and it came out of, my true belief in glimmers and belief that we can shape our systems in the direction of connection when we find those small moments of glimmers. And then I thought, well, how do we do it more mindfully, more intentionally, right? And so, what I came up with were some glimmer categories, because again, we humans love to put things in categories, right? We just do it. It helps us look for things. It helps us organize things. And so organizing glimmers became a way that we could, see to look and see what there is, but also have choice. Because again, remember, the nervous system needs choice in order to feel welcomed, right? So part of the, Glimmers Journal is these categories where you might, decide, I'm going to look for a glimmer in the, art and science category today. Or you might at the end of your day think, ooh, I found a glimmer, and what category does it fit into, right? There's no one way to use the journal, and that is, intentional, because I want people to feel it's theirs to move through in any way they want. So, yeah, and I will share that bit of personal story that I put in the acknowledgement somewhere, that I was putting the Glimmers Journal together as my husband was in his last months of life. He was dying, and so I was finishing writing it as he was dying, and I actually finished it after his death. And I have to say, it is a testament to the power of glimmers, right? I could not have written a book during that time, but the Glimmers Journal kept me going. It was like, oh, I'm what category and what part, how might we bring those in? So I don't know, to me, it felt like, oh, this is like proof to me that glimmers are powerful. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, I had a sort of similar experience. I've recently unexpectedly lost one of my friends, and it's been really a tragic sort of set of circumstances, but it's been, again, the power of glimmers has been reinforced for me, because even during this time, my girlfriends and I have been finding these moments of beauty in it, and it's like, wow,
Yeah, it's salve to the soul. Just on drying my eyes.
I know, we're all sort of in this.
Back down.
And even that, even the sharing of that felt very, very sweet and powerful, right? To know that we share the recognition from personal experience that glimmers are healing in their tiny moments. So thanks for sharing your experience too.
And on that, because, glimmers are tiny fleeting moments, the minutiae, sometimes, especially to a freshie that's new to the concept, or someone, not so much in deep trauma, that's nowhere near my remit, but someone that's starting out, it can be difficult to spot a glimmer at first, or to feel it or let it land. How do you prime yourself, or how would you recommend someone get started with feeling for glimmers?
Yeah, and the first basic practice is see, stop, appreciate. Very simple. So see, is to sort of be curious about how does your body send you a signal that you've just discovered something that felt okay, or brought a moment of joy or happiness. How does your body, and then how does your brain, right? Because we get messages from both, or what are some of your thoughts? Sometimes I, will notice something and I just stop for a minute and go, oh, right. That's for me, that often happens, right? Other people, have very different experience. So the very first part of the journal is to invite people to figure out, how do you know you've bumped into a glimmer, right? What are the cues for you that, oh, you've just noticed something that feels good or okay, right? And then once you do that, then as you go through your day, you can begin to look for those signs, right? And then you'll know, oh, there's a glimmer, right? And when you do that, stop and just, let it fill you for, just a few seconds. It really is a very small few second practice. So stop and just let it fill you for a few seconds. Just feel it come in, let it land, and then go on with your day. And the beautiful thing about glimmers has been, I found this over and over with clients, when they discovered their first glimmer, it then became easy to look for more. Right. It was just finding the first one. People will go, oh, I'll never find one. I say, they're all around, because they really are. They are all around. We just don't notice them. Right. So then we'd go on a glimmer hunt, I guess, is what we would do. Right. We'd say, well, let's see, if we can find one. When you find one, your body feels, oh, that felt good. And your brain goes, let's look for more. So once you find the first, then it's fairly easy to keep finding them. Yeah.
And in that, when you talk about see, stop, and say at the start of the journal glimmer, you also have a section, I think straight after, about intention.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is what you wrote, and if you could speak to it, I'd be so interested, because I love this observation. So you write, writing autonomically, I don't know if I can pronounce that right. Writing autonomically, informed intention involves bringing your brain-based intelligence and your nervous system-based wisdom together. Your brain and nervous system need to be on the same page. When your brain and body are not in agreement about the pathway to change, you'll struggle to realize an intention.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had that problem in your world?
All the time. All the time. Big plans.
Yeah. And it was when I really discovered the power of the nervous system that I thought, okay, this is why I struggle to follow through with intentions, because my brain is setting the attention, but not asking my nervous system if it feels manageable, right? So what we need to do is create an intention that feels big enough to catch your attention, but not so big that you can't do it, right? And I learned this from my clients. Bless my clients for all they taught me. But I would teach them about glimmers, and then they would say, "Oh, great, I'm going to look for glimmers." I said, "Let's make an intention," right? And they would usually say, "Okay," and something like, "I'm going to find 5 a day, and I'll come back and tell you about them." And I'd say, "Okay, let me say that back to you and see how that lands. You're going to find 5 glimmers a day and come back and tell me about them." And they'd look at me and they'd say, "I can't do that." I'd say, "Of course you can't, because that was your brain that said that. Your nervous system has a very different idea," right? So I said, let's start over and let's invite this conversation to happen. And what we've discovered is, in order for an intention to really work with the nervous system, it has to feel like an invitation. Right? If it feels like a demand or an expectation, if the language has any of that flavor, the nervous system will feel it has to, it should, and it'll go into a survival response. You will not get the benefit of a glimmer if you're doing it because you have to. Right? So your glimmer hunting is lovely, and I'm sure people are glimmer hunting with, a welcome, with an invitation, with not an expectation that they go find 10, right? But just, let's be on the lookout for, right? And so I invite people to write a glimmer intention as they start the journal, and that intention can change week to week, or they may keep the intention for the whole journal. It doesn't matter. But the one that I use, and I've been using for a long time now, is, I'm open to seeing the glimmers that appear on my path today, right? It's just very open. It's very, there's no expectation, right? And that's what my nervous system needs, that space. Your nervous system might want a little more structure, right? So there's this continuum of structure to space, right? And somewhere along that, your nervous system is going to say, oh, I would like to say, I'm going to look for the glimmers that appear on my path. Mine needs to have the more spacious, I'm open to finding, right? So again, it's the words that make a difference, right? So, as you create your intention, and you say it out loud, you think, are my brain and nervous system in agreement around this?
Wow.
Oh, that's 46 years I need to unpick that I've been doing it the wrong way around.
I know, it's really blown my mind that you have to join those dots, and like, wow, that's why things don't work. That's why it doesn't sort of match up sometimes. I'm really just
because my central nervous system is terrified. So it's like, we can't do that, and the mind is like, come on, get behind this.
Wow.
And it is, and then you go into that dorsal, you just shut off, and
Yes. Yeah.
Gosh.
So if the nervous system, gets anxious about any of this, then I need to take another step back and just be with, because your nervous system is telling you it doesn't feel safe in this moment. That's all it's doing. It's telling you going too fast doesn't feel safe yet. Right? And we want to listen to that. So if in the beginning, writing an intention feels too overwhelming to you, don't do it. Right? Do it later. Come back after you've discovered some glimmers, and then come back and see, what intention wants to emerge then. There aren't rules. The only rules around this are to listen to the wisdom of your nervous system, really. Right?
That's so lovely.
Can you share with us, because you mentioned anxiety, and I sound like an idiot, but does anxiety live just in the central nervous system, or does it have a satellite dish in the brain, in the mind as well? Like,
that's great.
Is it a city, a village, northern hemisphere?
It's a sympathetic nervous system driven experience, because it's the drivenness of should, have to, always seeking, but can't ever feel satisfied, right? So on
Control.
the nervous system,
Mine is it's obsessed with control.
Yeah, because if you weren't in control, what's the fear?
Exactly, that I will be out of control. I won't be able to control and then I think it triggers into perfectionism as well, because I won't be able to get the perfect ending. So I have to control everything there, and I know that I can't, and anxiety.
Exactly. So the nervous system state feeds the information to your brain, because they're the 80% of the pathways are body to brain, that feeds the information to your brain. Your brain's job is to make up a story to make sense of the information it's receiving. And our brains make up some pretty fantastic stories. Your brain makes up a story that, the world's going to explode, or I'm going to, whatever. And my brain makes up a story. I usually go, self-critical, inward, facing that, I'm useless, I'm hopeless, I'm never going to get this, no matter what I do, that sort of stuff. So yours maybe does that too. Was I seeing yeah, right. So, but it's our brains that are using the information from the nervous system to make up a story. And again, as we have more moments of regulation, as we find more glimmers, the brain gets the benefit of those moments, and it begins to make different stories.
Yeah, because the glimmer is like throwing a ball up to the brain, and the brain can catch it or not. But even if it just half hits and the brain doesn't, because for my calibration physically, when I get a big glimmer, my butt goes from side to side. I get like a butt wiggle.
Yeah.
And I never realised until I have a 10-year-old little girl, but when she was a baby and she used to eat food that she liked, she would get a butt wiggle in her high chair.
So sweet.
But that's my calibration.
I love it. That's your sympathetic nervous system in under the regulation of ventral. So you get that delightful energy, but it's not anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. And so your brain makes up a story of delight and joy, rather than a story of fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Deb, do you have any advice for people that are really struggling to find their glimmers?
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes I think I feel like, I don't know, Pollyanna or naive or something, because I do believe that glimmers are all around us, right? And that comes from my own experience. It comes from my experience of working with people who are living in trauma saturated worlds where they still find a glimmer. The a star in the sky or a smile from someone, or so I know it's possible. And I think part of what happens is, for all of us who have discovered a glimmer, we hold that belief because it's a lived belief now, right? So that's part of what happens. And then if you're struggling to find a glimmer, maybe there's someone else in your world who you might become a glimmer buddy with. And sometimes we can't find ours, but we can receive somebody else's, and we can feel a spark, right? Like I don't have the wiggle like you do, but when you were talking about it, I could feel a glimmer, right? So it's not my experience in any way, but I could resonate and feel a glimmer, right? So sometimes when we hear other people's glimmers, we feel something happen inside, and then that's, oh yes, it does exist. And what I tell people is, your ventral system is wired into your biology, right? It lives in your biology. There's nothing you have to do. It is there, right? So it's not like you have to go create something and bring it in. Your ventral system is there just waiting to notice a glimmer, right? So again, we make it as easy as we can, and we also say, and if you can't find one today, that's okay, right? Try again tomorrow, see what happens, right? It's that invitation, that sense of, there really is no right or wrong way to do this. That's just the way that your nervous system says it can do it.
And that, in the Glimmers Journal, it obviously, it encourages people to share their glimmers. And you've shared, the contagion of glimmers. And have you got personally, do you have like glimmer groups that aren't called that, but we were talking about like people that love stationery, or
I love it.
like Mother's Group, when you're all there and you are sharing the minutiae of the, this one's sitting up, this one ate a carrot, like it's this.
Yes.
Do you have in your personal world, have you got segments or a team, like a glimmer group?
Yeah, and as you were saying that, I was reminiscing to glimmer groups I have had in my life when I didn't call them glimmer groups. I didn't know that's what we were doing, right? And I think the benefit of naming a glimmer group is that you're bringing that intentionality and that mindfulness to this nervous system experience, and it increases its power, I think, when we name it in that way. So I have a couple of very dependable glimmer buddies, right? That we send glimmers back and forth, and sometimes it's just a word, and sometimes it's a picture, but very regularly, I offer and I get something back, which is great. I don't have a glimmer group at the moment, although I have my family, who now are all, of course, glimmering and looking for glimmers. And last year, my two daughters, for my birthday, invited a couple of my dear friends to come and surprised me, which was lovely. And they had little journals created that on the front it said collecting glimmers. And so we all have these journals that we're writing in to collect glimmers. So, it's sweet. And there's so many different ways to do it, right? People do email me and say that their organization has a glimmer group on their Slack channel. People will say they've created, glimmer groups in their communities, community lists. So there are all sorts of ways to do it. But yeah, and yes, mothers groups and groups that share a common purpose certainly are sharing glimmers. And I think if they notice, ooh, that was a glimmer I just shared, it feels different somehow. Yeah, when we name it in that way. Yeah.
And it's that safety as well. We're talking about safety and connection just to ourselves and to the universe. But then when you have it in a group, because, if you have a really specific interest, like many years ago, I used to study millinery, like la-di-da, hat making. And that's, it's a Mad Hatter vibe without the mercury. But you have to get right into like the feathers with the flowers that are made out of silk, and it's really specific. It's a really old craft, and you can share that with random strangers, or friends or family or whatever. But sometimes people, they frown at you and they're like, "You're weird," or "That's strange," or "I don't know what you're talking about," or "You think too much." And so sometimes sharing a glimmer as the reverse, and you retreat, but when you can immerse yourself in that subculture, that's like a double safety hit, like a glimmer safety hit, and then the community on top.
I love it.
Yeah, glimmer cake.
Yeah. I love it. Yes. Yeah. I mean, the possibilities are endless, aren't they, to create ways to connect around glimmers, really.
Absolutely.
And again, isn't that delightful, right?
It's beautiful.
So many options.
Exactly. Renee and I have been glimmer buddies for a while, where we text each other a glimmer each day, because Renee's based in Sydney at the moment. I'm in Newcastle, and so we were just doing it every day. And we used to say to each other that even just getting the text message of Renee's glimmer was a glimmer for me, because hearing somebody else's glimmer is a glimmer, and it's just sharing all that. And I think it's just something about that good energy that it sort of begets more good energy. Yeah.
You talked about the contagion. I think that ventral energy is contagious in the best of ways. We feel it, and then something comes alive and it can ripple out. So I love that you were sharing glimmers back and forth. That's sweet.
Yeah, because it's and this is the other thing that we love about glimmers is, and Emily talked before about the self-help world, which is great. And I have studied life coaching. I've been to the ashram in India. I've done the days of silence, the yoga, the gong bathing, the forest bathing. You name it. I'm going to sort this out. I'm going to crack this nut. And I could not be more tightly wound now if I tried. Like, if you flicked me, I would fly apart. And and so what I love though about the glimmers is it's manageable. And so my big brain is like, no, you need to do 10 days of silence. You need to go vegan. But but really, that's what I love about this. It's so bite-sized and small that the challenge is also accepting the smallness and having faith, and that I can feel that unwinds my central nervous system.
And then for you and for many people in the same circumstance, to notice over time what happens, right? Not notice today as opposed to yesterday, but notice a few weeks from now, notice what is there a pattern in your nervous system that's changing, right? Because the glimmers will add up, they accumulate, and they begin to shape our system in a new way. And so reflecting on that is a good thing to do. So down the road, reflect and say, what's different, right? What am I doing differently now from 3 months ago, and see what there is. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And I see that you've got that in your journal as well about collecting them, writing them down. And what I love is that you have right up the front, as if for people like me who need something quickly, is the getting out into the natural environment. And that's something, we all have access to, like a weed in the gutter or the sky. It's I love that you've got that right at the front.
Yeah. I think I was trying to think of the more predictable places and ways we find glimmers, and nature is certainly one, right? I mean, it's everywhere. Right. And even the research on nature is fascinating, because even if you can't get outside into nature, if you look at nature pictures, it brings that alive as well. So it really is accessible to most everyone. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we went to people and pets because, people and pets are the mammals that can bring glimmers, right? People can be a little challenging, and I get that, but we also have these tiny moments. And again, it's the tiny moments, like you walk down the street and somebody smiles at you, right? Or holds a door for you, or something, just that tiny moment, and you're sort of renewed your faith in humanity, which is fascinating, isn't it, from this tiny moment. Yeah.
And the fact
Yeah.
as well that you talk about, they're not a one and done experience as well. So it, they can, keep. There's a cumulative effect to it, and it can keep coming back to you as well, which is also very interesting.
And I think in the beginning we have to take all that information in because, much like Renee's brain that says you need a 10-day silent retreat, 30 seconds of stillness will do nothing. In fact, the science tells us otherwise, right? That the tiny moments actually are powerful in making change. So, we put a lot of that up front so that people might, be curious about, or at least think, oh, okay, I'll give that a try, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why your work has been so powerful as well, because like Emily and I knew that glimmers exist. As soon as Emily told me about glimmers, I was like, did not had a word, totally on it. I couldn't explain it very well. I still can't, but I know it when I feel it. And
Yes, exactly.
and then for you to add in all of this science, have you just watched the impact of that? Because if you explain it to someone in a sciencey world or a data style brain, like an engineer, and then be like, well, my butt wiggles and, my brain plays whack-a-mole. But if you say,
Right.
the proper science behind it, how's that?
Right.
Like, how have you watched that impact the world
Yeah.
with all of your work is amazing.
It is interesting because some people really want the science, and other people could care less, and they just want the felt experience, and they want to know, so what do I do, right? And I love being able to do both, and I think that's the choice that the nervous system needs. Nervous system needs choice. It needs context and it needs choice, right? Those are two things it needs. So I'm trying to give the context in ways that will fit for anybody, and people have the choice of look at the science or just dive in and try it out and feel what it feels like. And it doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that you are receiving what you need so that you can try out the practice.
Brilliant. In the Glimmers Journal, you talk about the idea of glimmering. Can you explain the concept of glimmering to our listeners who may have never heard of this before?
I know. I love the word, don't you, glimmering. We can create a whole new language here, but glimmering was, sort of this how do I become a glimmer for others, right? Because we have that capacity to be a glimmer for others, and then, we do it randomly by smiling at someone, and then, ooh, that was a glimmer for their system, right? So if we know we can do it, then how do we intentionally bring our capacity for sending glimmers and being a glimmer to others out in the world? And that became the glimmering piece. And there are lots of ways, to do that. Because really, when I have the capacity to be anchored in ventral, when I have the capacity to offer a tiny moment to another nervous system, that's a powerful intervention, right? And we think about, our world is kind of upside down right now. The world is crazy around the globe. We are living in crazy times. And when I think about changing systems, I get totally overwhelmed. But when I think about, I can be a glimmer for somebody, I can do that. Right. So, if we can be a glimmer for another nervous system, that nervous system gets the benefit. And then my guess is that nervous system is going to feel it. It might be a glimmer to the next person. So lots of ways for glimmering that we talk about, and invitations to try things out. I think the thing I wanted to do in the journal was to add, to put some prompts. They're prompts for all the different categories and all of the things that are my sort of nervous system prompts, and then space for you to explore on your own. right? And my hope is that once the journal is out there, that people will begin to send some of their, their glimmers that they discovered on their own in, because it would be fun to see all the different ways nervous systems, find glimmers, right? Beyond the categories that I've put out there. So yeah, that's my hope.
100%. Like we've talked about that as well. Like just when you learn how sort of unique glimmers can be for each individual, I think it's so interesting, just because it sort of covers the whole breadth of humanity, like all our different sort of traits and, I don't know, the way we lean into certain things. And it's just a joy to just witness that, I think, as well.
And nothing goes to waste.
No,
because one person's glimmer is another person's trigger. And it's the exact same happening, but it's the interpretation of the central nervous system. It's like round pegs and round holes kind of a search.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too. It keeps us in that place of curiosity, which is where we want to be, and not making an assumption that my dreary, misty, gray day is a glimmer for everybody, right? That's an assumption. Because it's a glimmer for me, it's going to be a glimmer for you. But to be curious, this was a glimmer for me. What was it for you? And most of the people I say this to go, no, thank you, right? But for my system and your system, it's like, oh, so sometimes you have these shared moments where you think, oh, I'm usually a misfit in my glimmer, and this time I found my people who share that glimmer, right? So to be curious about that, I think is important as well.
For sure. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention about Glimmers or the Glimmers Journal or anything else related?
Oh boy, that's a wide open question.
It is.
Oh, no, I guess. I mean, we've talked a lot about the science and the structure of the journal, and I guess, I really am curious to see when it is out there in the world, how it lands for people. So, it's for me, it's going to be interesting, because I will say this was a heart-inspired project. It's a different project than I've done before, and it was sort of that, taking a leap into, this new thing, and I'm curious to see how it lands, and see if other people find as much joy in glimmers as I have, and as I've seen people do over the years, and see how it changes the way they navigate the world, which I think is really what we're looking for, right? How can we change the way we navigate the world in a way that doesn't feel so hard to do, right? I think it just doesn't have to be so hard, right? The nervous system says, give me something small and easy, and let's do it over and over, and we can work with that. So yeah.
Oh my goodness, I could not agree more.
My goodness, yeah. Just so much has landed. Thank you so much. You've changed a lot of stuff in my mind. I feel like I've been missing a few critical pieces up until today.
Yeah.
But from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it so much. It's been such a lovely treat and experience
to
chat with you.
Yeah. Maybe I'm coming to Australia in August. Maybe we can say hello.
Oh,
in person.
We would love that.
Yes, please. That's a glimmer. Yeah, it's a glamour.
There we go. We'll go on a glimmer hunt together.
Oh, we would love that. All right. Well, thank you so much. All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Gosh, me. Did that just blow your mind?
Blow my mind. It's all going to come out.
Tell me. What about Deb's energy? She seemed so in that ventral vagal space, just so calm. There was something very calm about her.
Yes, she was like warm toast.
Yes.
She was so comforting.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, and that was that glimmering. Her rested ventral nervous system was contagious.
Contagious, absolutely. And the idea of being somebody else's glimmer, like that glimmering idea, like even when I just close my eyes and think about the word glimmering, I get to see like like water, like sunshine on water or something. There's something so beautiful about just the idea that it conjures up, but then to like think about putting that into practice, even the thought of that, whether you do it or don't do it or whatever, like just the thought of that is just such a beautiful idea and a glimmer in itself.
For sure. Like, and when you say glimmering and she was talking about it, I kind of pictured that we were all sequins and then because you put lots of sequins together, glimmer, right. Like glimmering.
Yeah.
And then I thought about how there's like
shimmering, glimmering.
Shimmering, glimmering, yeah. And then I thought about how there's like theoretically or scientifically a little bit of stardust in all of us.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, so we're literally all just glimmers. Like we're literally, if you push us together, we're probably just a giant sun.
Let's do it and find out.
Sun.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But that goes with the water as well.
Yeah.
Like all those H2O particles.
Yes. It's very nice.
Isn't it? That's nice. Gosh, I feel like I've just had a glimmer, like a glimmer binge.
Yes.
A
and what
glinge.
about you gave Deb lots of glimmers? I was like,
I don't know who am I?
I was like, she's doing it.
I couldn't stop. She was just so juicy and you don't often meet, like she's an ultra rare.
Yeah.
You know, someone that's scientific and physical, emotive. And, you know, sometimes in the science sector, like I love science, but scientists per se can get very stuck in the mind.
And the data and the theories and the
secret ego.
And also just having the proof of, you know, like the results and of the experiments and the data collection sort of thing. But I think, yeah, as you said, she's like crossing over both worlds, which is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Because it's not easy. You know, I think about people in my life that if I tried to explain a glimmer to would just think I was cuckoo.
Yeah.
And then other people, if I tried to explain the polyvagal system, equally cuckoo. So, yeah, that was really, I can see how, it's no accident that she's coined the term and created this pathway, this gorgeous pathway, and this missing piece, this central nervous system.
I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time.
Some questions.
Yeah. We'll start our little collection of questions for Deb when she arrives in August.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was just exceeded my expectations. That was just incredible.
Yeah, and I really had the visual, like, with the ventral system and then the sympathetic system and the dance between the two is when... And then the dorsal, like the sympathetic system physically, you know, if it was a bunch of strands, you can feel that tightness and that tenseness of your nerves.
Yep.
And when it's calming down, it feels like an iron going through like a crumpled sheet.
Yeah.
Like just smoothing it out again and letting it relax. And literally you can feel, because they talk about, like, you know, in self-help all the time, you talk about states of contraction, states of expansion. And it's a part of, like, that absolutely feeds into it for me as well. Yeah, because a glimmer is that your muscles release a little bit sometimes.
Totally. Because that's the safety in it, you know, the comfort, the soothing.
Yeah, that lack of adrenaline.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that?
It's just lovely because that's why the body feels it, because the central nervous system is in the body. It bypasses the brain.
I know. It's below conscious, like, thought, like below a conscious level of thought, yeah. Which I think so many of us, especially today, just intellectualize so much stuff, like just get so caught up in like this sort of, like, talking from my own experience, like, in this brain space, head space, but you can't live from like that place long term.
No, it's exhausting, and it's also really feeds into, for my own personal experience, with the negative bias, because sometimes you can have a glimmer, but if you're feeling in such a shitty mood, you'll just be like, but it's probably not going to last anyway. You know, and that's that really sacrificing side, and it's exhausting.
Totally. But again, like, how achievable the glimmers are, and also why they're so, like, two things, like the power of glimmers. Like, I think when Deb was talking about it and her experience and just putting that into real life context, I think it was just really powerful to hear as well. Yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say now, so don't worry about it.
I know. I get you though. I totally 100% get you. Just beautiful.
Yeah.
Done that whole thing, the whole Yeah, because and then the writing it down and then slowing down your brain and then getting the intention. And it's also a nice challenge for my monkey brain. That's what I was going to say as well about the analytics is like my monkey brain isn't happy just to have a glimmer. Like it is constantly looking for meaning and wanting to stitch it back and to find out. And and I think it's okay. Like it is what it is. I still have a brain. Like I can't, as much as I abuse it. And so it's good for it to have a job. But that's a much more positive job is unpicking. And that's one thing I love about Glimmers as well is the unpicking, the symbology or just the physicality or the mystery of it. And then we talk about this as well, like different kinds of glimmers, like revenge glimmers, the dark side of glimmer. But unpicking why, wanting natural justice or any justice or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then physical ones, audio, AMSR.
Yeah. 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 No, that was a whole lot of, that conversation on Glimmers, I got so many glimmers from it. So, yeah, very, very grateful for that.
Yeah. It was wonderful. Well, thank you for the introduction. It was via you because of your article that we got here.
I know, but how crazy was the timing of that as well? And that Deb's PR reached out for me in the weeks that we started this podcast. That was crazy timing as well.
Yep. I know. That all from that article that you wrote.
Yeah.
Honestly, what hit you wasn't a glimmer; it was a lightning bolt, and it's so much electricity. It's still
it's still going.
Yeah, perpetual motion machine.
Well, let's keep it going.
Indeed.